Welcome back to the EVO project. In this video, we're going to be mostly focusing on replacing the bushings in the rear mustache bar. There weren't any issues with it other than the bushings were looking pretty rough, so I just decided to do it. But first thing I want to do before I get into that was tackle removing the subwoofer that came in this car, as well as the aftermarket amp in this. I'm not a big audio guy. I've never really cared for having audio. I just want to get rid of some extra wiring and make the cars a little bit lighter. But in order to get to the bolt under the passenger seat, I did have to remove the center console here, and then that gave me access to that bolt down there, and that's one of like 4 or 5 bolts. There's my puppy. Puppy loves to hang out with me while I'm in the garage. Got the seat out, by the way. And then here is a view of the kicker amp that was under the seat with about a foot of negative cable and then about 10 feet worth of positive cable here. Looks to be about 2 or actually a 4 gauge wire, but previous owner fished it in pretty good around the body panels here, so I had to remove all the panels to try and get access to the wires as he traced it around the car. And I do a light tug here and there just to see where it's catching. If it ever catches, you never force it. And then here is a view of the power cable on the other side that was connected to the battery. It's got a nice little relay or junction fuse box here for the wire, but it did get fished through the firewall. So I'm going to slowly and lightly just pull this thing through the firewall without jerking around too much, because once it catches, you want to stop and then go find where it's catching again. But because you really don't want to rip or break anything, wiring, plastics, etc., especially on an older car. In cars like this where it's a classic and just parts are becoming more and more expensive, just want to be really careful about pulling everything out and not snapping anything. And then we had some of the coaxial cable from the amp that was catching inside of the center console here. So I'm going to remove some more of the console here, continue to try to fish out a lot of this wire, again, without pulling and jerking too hard, because once it catches, again, try and find the catch point or just start removing more panels so you can find out where it is. And you'll see it, I give it like a light little tug here and it's catching up there. So I'll end up fishing my hands through there and trying to find out where it's catching and pull it just a little more gently so I don't break anything. Finally got that bit out, so I'm going to throw that in my pile of wires here that I'm starting to collect. And noticing, I'm thinking this is the radio harness. One of the plug that went to the factory radio was, a lot of the wires were clipped. I don't know anything about audio, to be honest, or wiring, so I'm just going to leave here what looks to still be functioning and working, and then probably just get rid of this plug here. But here is the pile of the wires that I pulled from the amp and the audio setup. One of the things I didn't do in the last video was test starting the car after I replaced the spark plugs and fixed some of the issues that I was having in cylinder number 4. Startup seems to be a lot better than last time. It's the 85, it's a cold start, so it's still going to have just a little bit of an idle issue right in the beginning, but the car isn't dying, which is great. So got a good e-mix, but the air-to-fuel ratio gauge does not work still, so I will order a new O2 sensor and put that in there. Okay, got the car jacked up. We're going to pull the old Walmart battery out of here. I believe that Walmart was actually, the Walmart battery was too small for this setup as a 26R battery. But regardless, I'm putting Optima in here. So we're going to pull the battery tray out, because I would also like to get a nice look as far as, I guess, what's going on in the engine bay here. There's a lot of things and unknowns that I still don't know about this car since I bought it from someone who had modified it. So while I'm at it, I'm also going to inspect the engine mounts and see how they're doing. The engine mount on the driver and passenger side actually looked fairly decent. There were no cracks, no deformities that I can see. Actually not bad. So I'm going to leave these here. Even when I rev the motor does not rock. So I would say these mounts, while they are dirty, are still very functional. Now this K&N filter has seen better days, and I'm going to say it's done. So I'm going to toss this and buy a new filter to put in. Looking around, I got to look at the blow-off valve. I guess it's a ETS. I don't know if it's a Synapse or what kind of blow-off valve, but either way, I'm looking at the E85 kit here. We can see where the E85 lines were ran and they did the conversion. I'm still learning about what that setup might look like as far as sensors, so I'll continue to learn about it and look some more and see what kind of sensor is in there. But as you can see, this car did sit a lot. There are cobwebs everywhere and a lot of dust. West Texas, eastern New Mexico, and even bits of, I guess if I'm going to throw in Oklahoma, are known for dust out here. But good thing is there's no rust. It's just a lot of dirt, so I guess a good power washing would do this thing a lot of good. There's also no damage. I look in here, it did have a clean title, and all the VINs are in place on this car. There are no missing VINs, and even all the emissions are still here at the back of the car. So this is a fairly complete car. But the video here that we did today is for the bushings, so we're looking at those right now. But in order to get to those bushings, we are going to have to remove the exhaust first to be able to get access to the bracket on the rear differential. Now this eBay exhaust is, I don't know what it's made of. It seems to be incredibly corrosive metal because it is the only thing that seems to show any type of rust. And the fitment was also pretty bad, as you saw there on the bumper. The previous owner cut the bumper to fit the exhaust. Looking on the EVO forums, I believe this was a kind of a popular eBay exhaust for $200-300 back in the day. But I absolutely hate it. It's disgusting. But being as how I got to get rid of this car here soon anyways, I'm just going to leave it there for now. That way it's drivable on the street. But yeah, we'll get started on the rear differential here. I'm removing first the carrier bolts here that connect to the frame of the car, and then I'll hit these smaller bolts. So I will use my Harbor Freight transmission jack to lower and raise the rear differential and support it. It's a 10-year-old transmission jack, so I'm sure they have a better revised version of it now, but I love it. Anyways, so I'm going to put some support on the rear differential. That way I can remove all the brackets and not worry about it falling down. But as you can see, the bushings have had better days. They are quite cracked. I'm not sure if this little twist-ish motion that looks like it has in there is normal or if that's incredibly bad. So it's a good thing replacing the bushings here. Again, I didn't hear any clunks. I didn't have any issues with the rear differential while driving, but kind of initial inspection I had looking at it didn't look great. So I just figured why not replace it, right? I mean, these bushings are only $80. I did pay $300 for someone to press out all the bushings, so next time I think I will just cut them out myself than having pay someone that much to have them press it out. But while I'm under here, I'm looking around the rest of the car, the things meant to remove. Looks like with the EVOs, you do have to lower the rear subframe to be able to get access to some of the other bolts on the Mustache bar to have it removed. So sway bar is going to come down, subframe's got to come down, and then once you do that, you can have access to all the bolts on the rear Mustache bar, and also just be able to take it out without having to fight it too much. And here we go. We have the rear sway bar disconnected, and we have moved it back down. I did leave the end links connected just because you can, and you won't have any issues getting everything else out. But there's a hardware up there for the Mustache bar itself, and there are the 3 bolts that connect the Mustache bar to the rear diff. And here are some of the larger 17 millimeter bolts that you will have to remove to get the subframe to drop. Luckily, the subframe does not drop suddenly. It doesn't drop abruptly. It's a pretty easy, I don't know. Basically, don't be scared to do this. You'll be fine. Just go ahead and take these bolts out. Keep the support on the diff with the jack, and everything's going to be all right. Now you'll see me using this electric gun, but please realize that I only use this after I've broken the bolts loose with a breaker bar and a socket. Never, for most parts of the time, you don't want to start immediately with the gun here and end up stripping the threads if it's stuck. Or if it's has some trouble coming out. You never know. The previous owner might have cross-threaded some things, so you want to try and take it out easily first. For example, this one here actually was kind of stuck, so I ended up having to use a breaker bar to ratchet it out by hand versus using a gun the whole time. But luckily, the threads were great. There were no issues whatsoever. So got everything out. You can see that the subframe has been lowered by about 3 to 4 inches, so I have plenty of clearance now to take out this Mustache bar, which, by the way, I've removed the bolts from the Mustache bar and the diff as well. So just going to take these here nuts and bolts out, and then that Mustache bar will slide right on out. And just another example here of me removing some of the hardware by hand without starting with the gun first. Because if you can do it by hand, again, you just always want to make sure you can do that so you don't strip anything out. And make sure you don't try and force it or use an angle. Because once you start using an awkward angle removing hardware, then you do risk stripping it yourself. Being that stuff is for the EVO, as expensive as is, I just don't want to risk having to buy absolutely anything. So plus it's probably hard to find. So here's a Mustache bar pulled out, and you can see that Much like the diff brackets, the bushings on this are also pretty awful. So I'm really glad that I ended up taking this whole thing out and replacing all the bushings on the brackets and the mustache bar. So should improve maybe the feel quite a bit. At least that's what the other guys have said in the videos. While doing this, I keep my battery on a tender so that way it doesn't lose its charge. But here it is. All the bushings have been pushed out, and then I will be pushing the new ones in by hand. And it's not too hard. Just put some of the grease that it comes with onto the bushings and then slide it in. So now with all the bushings in, I can slide in the bushing pins and start to put this in place on the car and start putting the mustache bar back in. So just as it came out, you just put it right back in the same way and it should fall right into place. You might have to put a little bit of grease on the side of the bushings to go ahead and clear into the subframe, but once you've done that, it should drop right in. Those holes will all line up and you can just put all your hardware back in. And I did throw a little bit of grease on these pins before sliding them back in. You might have to take a mallet here and just kind of tap them in there. If you have to go beyond tapping and just start hammering away, then maybe you should pull it back out and check, see what's going on. But once you get that in there, you can just start putting the subframe in the same way you took it back out. And much like how I mentioned about trying not to force it on the way out, the same thing going in. If your threads start catching, don't force it, reset, try again. As we see here, some things aren't really lining up immediately, but that's fine. That's going to be standard. This is an extremely precise fit with these bushings and everything going back in. Not to mention the bushings, since they're urethane, they have a little bit less give than what the factory stuff does. So you want to go ahead and just back all your hardware back out and just kind of keep fidangling it until things start lining up. And again, finger it all in by hand or with your fingers. Don't try and use any tools just yet. Get everything to fit in there nicely. And once that's in there, go and thread it all the way in, and then you start using your tools. So stay tuned for the next video, where next time we'll be changing the fluids on a transmission, transfer case, and the rear diff. See you next time.